God, sorry, you scared me. I had no idea you would be here. No idea, I swear. Got this for Christmas. Also got this for Christmas. I'm going to remove it because I want to look a little bit cuter. Is it okay to take off your clothes on YouTube? Oh my gosh, I had such a day. Ugh. Welcome to another Behind the Muzak. I am your host, Buttface. I've had nothing but audio issues today and video issues and all kinds of issues. So really it's just a normal day in the life of Buttface. Got a rotting banana here that I started eating hours ago. So let's get started. I'm gonna go through the Fire-Toolz Reddit and answer all the questions that don't have to do with Drip Mental that I have not answered in the last video. But I think there might be Nutrigrain on my lips. Oh, my lipstick is bad. Look at that. Darduke is a user on Reddit, and I'm pretty sure their username is a play on words, a reference to the 90s, or maybe it was late 80s, I don't know, Swedish black metal band, Marduk. What's your process for beginning a new project or idea? Oh boy. My process is either not having an idea at all, what I want to do, or having one idea, and no more than that. I will start with a couple chords on a synth, or maybe a beat, maybe just one drum doing a pattern, and I will just build and build and build, and eventually a full song is born, and I usually have no idea how I get there. I have a friend who experiences full songs coming to them at once, and I experience this too, but I never build that song because it's too frustrating and not fun to follow directions and stick to this blueprint that I've laid out for myself. I would say Fire-Toolz is very improvisational, but also very calculated. And the improvisation shows itself in the toying around with ideas and sounds and effects and melodies. And the calculated part of it is what I do after that toying around has manifested something solid. If I were to work on a song that had come to me all at once, I wouldn't enjoy the process of putting it together. I would not enjoy getting the drums down and then moving on to the bass when in the back of my head there's already a guitar part, there's already synth parts. Usually if I'm working on something and an idea comes to me that has to do with a completely different part of the song or a completely different instrument, I will stop what I'm doing and go to that, and I will bounce around. And that is kind of a bad way to do things. Having a process that you can stick to and having an order that you go in sounds on the top of my head like a way to stay organized and a way to motivate oneself and a way to not get overwhelmed or confused. But no, that's no fun. I wouldn't be doing this if the process wasn't fun. I see musicians like suffer through creating a song, and by the time they're done with it, they either hate it or they just like don't feel good. And I just don't want to ever experience that. And this is part of the reason why Fire-Toolz sounds the way it sounds. I don't think this process causes me any real problems, though. It seems to be the way I work best. It seems to be a process in which the flow of things stays very fluid. It's like a river that just keeps going. Completing one part of a song is the thing that leads me to the next part. unless I'm working on part 1 and an idea for part 2 comes to me, I don't want to lose it, so I'll get the backbone of that down and get it out of the way and come back to it later. The trick is to just keep listening to the ideas that bubble up spontaneously and follow them. And if I'm too wrapped up and I'm too busy working on something to listen to one of those thoughts that comes up, I might just forget about it. I might just get rid of it.
Yeah, I gotta write these jokes, so I sit at the hotel at night, I think of something that's funny, then I go get a pen and I write it down. Or, if the pen's too far away, I have to convince myself that what I thought of ain't funny.
The ideas will never stop coming. I look back at my catalog and think, like, that's nothing. Like, that was just like little bits of purging here and there. Like, I have so much more to manifest. Everything I do is a collaboration with nature or the universe or chance. You could even call it God. I mean, that's kind of what I feel like it is. But I see God as a synonym for nature and chance. I see it all as one thing. I really feel like those are synonyms in a way. So, however you want to put it, whether you want to put it spiritually or in a way that's more down to earth, you could say that I am just one of the billions and billions of members of Fire-Toolz. I'm the one sitting at the computer, clicking things and playing stuff on a synth and strumming the guitar, but it's like me and everything else in this existence sort of comes together to get it down on paper, get it recorded, get it released. I feel like I can't take credit for any of my music. I feel like I'm just a vessel, or I'm just a facilitator. I'm just someone who knows how to use tools. As far as the actual ideas, though I am very connected with them, though they do mean a lot to me and they are very much a reflection of what's going on inside me, I would also say that there's a lot more happening underneath or behind me that's going through me that makes the music turn out the way it does. I hope that makes sense. I just recorded like 20 different ways of explaining that, and I'll end up editing them down and hopefully it comes out clear. It just doesn't feel like I'm making any effort or doing anything. It's like I'm letting loose and just like letting what's going to happen. And that is my process for beginning a new project or idea and working on it until it's done. Porter Vong asks, while the connection to the vaporwave movement is largely by association, to what extent would you say vaporwave has influence on your work as Fire-Toolz, if any? This is one of the most loaded questions you could ask me. And I think some of you might know that I have complicated, opinionated takes on vaporwave and Fire-Toolz' relationship with it. I think one of the best explanations I've ever given was from an interview I did a couple years ago. I don't know if that podcast is still around, but I'm pretty sure I have the recording of it, so I am going to try and dig that up and actually splice it into this video. It's kind of long. It's a long-ass answer, but I think it's the best one I've ever given. And if it does not come after this sentence, then something will, explaining why that clip isn't in this video. Hello, and this is Angel from the future. I am recording this in editing because I did find the podcast I wanted to include a clip from, but it was such a long and dragged out answer with so many ums and uhs that it just drove me crazy trying to edit it, and by the time I had finished editing it, it didn't really say what I wanted it to say. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question with audio only and a 27-hour shadow on my face and my hard drive clicking away and my cat meowing so that I can give you a proper answer. I love vaporwave, and when I first discovered it, it was probably 2013 or so, maybe 14. I had heard the word before that, but had no idea what it was. I found a Telepath album, and it was all downhill from there. Downhill as in uphill, as in getting into vaporwave. For me, Fire-Toolz has always been a project rooted in noise and industrial and techno and house and prog, to sum it up. The elements of jazz fusion and new age music came in a little bit later, but even from the beginning, I was sort of toying with 90s and 80s adult contemporary and pop sounds. And the artwork and imagery was very net art-ish, very collage-based, a lot of reappropriated imagery using elements of corporate stock aesthetics and what came off as irony, but for me was more like something genuine in sort of an ironic costume or something, where the identity under the costume was the same as the costume, but without the layer of irony on top of it. It was like completely sincere, but my art style and my presentation and I guess my humor really kind of gave it an ironic tinge. That ironic tinge did not last more than an album and a half, in my opinion. Other people would probably argue it went a lot later than that and is still present because I'm putting things like my cat on the front cover of an album and singing about cats or screaming about them. But even since the beginning, vaporwave has only been something that I feel has crept into my music and ducked out here and there. And for me, Fire-Toolz was just a reflection of all of these different electronic and beyond styles of music that move me and that have been with me for a while. So, as you can imagine, after putting out an album or two and people start calling it vaporwave and sort of not really listening to the industrial and noise and prog and metal, black metal and death metal, jazz fusion, new age music, experimental music like ambient and drone and glitch and IDM and all of that stuff. It was just seen by a lot of people, and to this day is still seen, this idea that Fire-Toolz is a vaporwave project. Can you imagine Devin Townsend being labeled as like a techno artist just because a few of his songs on one of his albums had some like techno beats in them? Calling Devin Townsend a metal artist is definitely narrowing things down and simplifying them a whole lot, but at least it like makes sense to be the umbrella term. And that would be like calling Fire-Toolz, I don't know, progressive electronic music. I'm putting in all of this stuff that I have been hoarding in my mind and my body since childhood, but it's being given a label that is new to the early 2000s and really doesn't embody hardly anything that I'm bringing to the table. I am bringing in jazz fusion elements and new age elements because those are types of music that I really like, and just because vaporwave samples from those genres doesn't mean that the music I'm making is the type of music that originated when people were sampling the type of music that I'm influenced by. I hope that makes sense. Almost every review I read of my music, even though it's a very positive review, talks about Fire-Toolz as my vaporwave project. And one super worthy argument here is that not everyone is like a total music nerd and has the ability to, or even interest in, or experience with, or whatever, in describing music with such nuance and perfectly categorizing things. We all have our own views and opinions on things. We interpret things different ways, and many of us don't care or don't understand all of this terminology, and that's fine. It might be just plain convenient for someone from a distance to maybe see two of my album covers, hear a few songs, and be like, oh, it sounds like vaporwave, but more aggressive or more noisy or something. And I also have to keep in mind that some people were just born in 2003 and just didn't have any exposure in their early development listening to 80s and 90s music, and maybe they hear some sounds in my music, and the closest thing they have, the closest reference they have to compare it to is like, I don't know, like George Clanton or FM Skyline or Telepath or something. Maybe they're hearing synth sounds in my music that they've also heard in those artists' music. And that, on top of the fact that they may have discovered me through vaporwave because, well, I'm close with a lot of vaporwave artists. I collaborate with them. I remix their stuff. They remix mine. I've played at Electronicon. So I kind of put myself in that zone, even if I prefer not to be categorized that way. And that can make it very easy for someone to just go along with their best assessment that forms itself based off of their exposure to my music. I just want to be tolerant and understanding of where everyone else is coming from, and I also don't want to try and act like I should have control over how people talk about my music. So I hope all of this is being understood. I know I'm being a little bit of a baby, but Fire-Toolz is my baby. But ultimately, people will interpret things how they will, and that's fine, and that's one of the beauties of life. We're all sense organs of the infinite, as my friend Rick would say. The next question here from Lumpy Taco is favorite guitar tunings? Well, since the late 90s, my electric guitars have been tuned to a whole step down, and then the low strings drop down another step. So you would call that drop C, I guess. However, I really love to experiment with weird tunings, and there's one I made up a long time ago that I find really beautiful. It's C, G, D, D sharp, A sharp, D. It's a beautiful dissonant chord. It locks you in a little bit. Like, I've never really written anything in this tuning that didn't sound like what I was just doing when I was screwing around. The really cool thing about this is that the D and the G string are a half step apart. So if you just bar them, you get that dissonance. And really, it's just like, you know, when you have a tuning where the open strings are a great chord, you kind of naturally want to build off of that. Smooth Groove 22 says, what is your general process flow for producing Fire-Toolz songs? How does it differ from the process flow used for other projects like Mindspring Memories or Non-Local Forecast? Well, I did already kind of explain the Fire-Toolz process. I mean, I could go on, but I gave you the basic gist. But I'll compare it to those other two projects. It's kind of similar with Non-Local Forecast as far as not really starting with a particular idea and just building off of that and seeing where it goes. But with Non-Local Forecast, there is some general guidelines as far as mood, but otherwise it's very similar in the way that ideas sort of form themselves based off of what I've already got recorded. With Mindspring Memories, I mean, all of that stuff is sample-based. I'm not composing any of those melodies. All I'm doing is arranging the songs. Most of the work is processing, utilizing delay and reverb and modulation, usually phaser, but flanging and chorus. It's really just about collaborating with the artists that created the music that I am now rearranging. Fire-Toolz is a collaboration with the universe. Mindspring is a collaboration with the melodies and the chord progressions and the beats that are already on paper. I did a remix one time as Mind Spring Memories as requested for a song by an artist called Quick Sales, who is my friend Ben Billington. In that situation, the goal was not to stick to my Mind Spring Memories process. It was to make the song sound like a Mind Spring Memories song. I don't usually work with stems. I don't work with a whole lot of layers. I'm usually just working off of a single audio file. But in that case, I did have to write some drums and make them sound kind of like drums that would be in a Mind Spring Memories song. So I kind of broke my rules with that one, but it was a special occasion. My friend Ben, using the Reddit username Our Alarm Clock, says, if you could make Marmalade out of any kind of wing, what wing would you use? Well, Ben is breaking the rules here because this is not a Fire-Toolz question, but I'll answer it anyway. He's referring to a moniker I use, Angel Wings Marmalade, which is sourced from a song by Jeremy Enoch, who is the lead singer and guitarist of Sunny Day Real Estate. In that song, he sings the line, Angel Wings Marmalade. Nobody knows what that means, but it's pretty awesome. Years ago, when I was working on a cover of this song, I tweeted at Jeremy and said, is it Angel Wings Marmalade? And it's because I thought my ears were mistaken, and he responded and said yes. So, to answer your question, if you could make Marmalade out of any wing, what wing would you use? The Red Bull ones. Rickety Snickers asks, apologies if you've already discussed this somewhere, but what synths or VSTs do you like? Especially curious about the bell sounds. Well, I did talk about synths and VSTs in the last video, but I was focusing on Drip Mental. These days, I use the shit out of the Korg M1 and Korg Wave Station. And I would say the other entity in this holy trinity is Alchemy, which is a synth/sampler that comes with Logic. And if you're making your own samples and your own wavetables and stuff like that, Alchemy can do anything. So I find it to be a good one-stop shop of endless possibilities. I also mess with tons of other synths, but not often. Almost all of my albums has probably 30 different synths on it, though I usually focus on the Holy Trinity. And a lot of times things you're hearing aren't synths, but they're other things that I have just processed and synthesized like crazy to sound like one. In another thread of questions, Listen Corp asks, fill us in on your appreciation of Block Party. Saw you tweet about them and they were my #1 band throughout my adolescence. Absolutely worshipped them. The album I know the most is Silent Alarm. That's when I got into them. I'm a huge fan of emo, especially first and second wave emo. I always found their music to be so derivative of that style, but they never really claimed that in any interviews. They never name-dropped any of those bands that they sound similar to. So I'm wondering if it was just kind of accidental. So that's what I was talking about in my tweet, I think. But yeah, I just love their early stuff. Soapbox Critic 89 says, have you stuck with rolling joints, or was that a passing fancy? No, I'm still doing it, and I'm still getting better, but it's a slow process. I can't do it without spilling a ton of it. In fact, I tend to overpack them because I know half of it's gonna come out. But I'm doing okay. I guess I thought I would get better more quickly, but the time between not being able to do it at all and being able to at least get one rolled was actually a matter of like 3 attempts. And now, between attempt 3 and attempt 50, I'm still kind of just crawling along. And I feel like I'm using a lot more weed too, which is not something I feel great about. So I don't only smoke joints, I still use bowls and bongs. Jazzy Frankenstein is quoting a tweet I made the other day that says, if you saw my small list of cover songs I've been meaning to work on, you'd probably kick me in the leg really hard. You'd shriek, but why these? Why these? And then I would say, I am the one who does the shrieking here. And I would proceed to not drop the mic, but pick it up and rock. Can we get a taste of that list, though? Well, I don't want to give away the whole list. I will say that I've had a Fear Factory cover in the works for years, meaning I started it a few years ago, maybe 4, and never finished it. It's the song Zero Signal, which I first heard on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, and that soundtrack changed my life and introduced me to other bands that I am still very passionate about. It was a truly eye-opening experience. It got me into electronica. It got me into... Well, it didn't get me into death metal. I already liked death metal, but there was a Napalm Death song on there that was just like... Every time I hear the beginning of it now, it just like makes me feel like I'm about to get crushed or something. And I'm pretty sure it was my introduction to Type O Negative. It was also the first time I had heard Orbital. Their song on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack was just as moving then as it is now. But anyway, back to this cover song list. I'll just go ahead and pull it up real quick and see what I'll let myself get away with talking about. I'll give away 2 more of them. I really want to cover Perth by Bon Iver, because that song is just next level gorgeous. The first time I heard it, I was just in tears. I was not expecting it. I kind of liked his old stuff okay. I wouldn't really listen to it now. When he came out with this album, somebody encouraged me to listen to it because they said it was a lot different. And I just pressed play, and the opening guitar riff, I was like, oh man. Like, I feel goosebumps right now talking about it because I know how it sounds in my head. And then just with everything else, the way it happens, and it's just the most perfect song. I don't know how to play it, but I'm gonna learn. And the other song I'll give away is actually kind of funny. No, it's not funny. I'm saying that because I'm afraid you'll think I'm silly, so I'm pretending it's ironic. But it's not ironic. I legitimately love this song. And you know what? Kings of Leon, Sex on Fire. The chorus? Like, holy crap. Like, those vocals are just like, they're just like desperate. He's just belting. It just sounds like he's crying or something. And speaking of crying, the freaking guitar riff, like the high one, like that guitar is just like crying like a baby. It sounds so emotional, and I just feel like I could make like the sickest, like heavy ass version of that song. You know, like hardcore, like electronic hardcore, like with a distorted kick, like do, like yeah. I don't know, God, that would be so sick. POPLZ says, thoughts on the Wim Hof method? I really don't know much about it. I know a little bit about it. I've heard great things. I've heard not great things, but the not great things I heard were more of a criticism of the person who started it, Wim Hof, and less about the actual techniques. And yeah, I think that's about it. I think I got every question on this Reddit, this subreddit, that was not answered in the Drip Mental video. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being interested. I got some very nice feedback after the last video I did from people who wanted more content from me, and I don't know what it is. I've been itching to make videos for years now, and it took a really long time to get myself to start. I felt so dumb doing this the first couple times. Frankly, the first couple times I saw someone else doing it, I thought they looked dumb. So in the next video, I'll probably be talking about another one of my albums. Oh, God, glad that's over.
Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
I love you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I love you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I love you.
I will see you again soon.
Goodbye.